Star Wars has more variety in its ship designs than any sci-fi franchise I know of, and with all that variety, you are bound to encounter some unusual vehicles. Today we are going to take a look at the strangest examples of one of Star Wars' most popular ship categories. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and these are the weirdest freighters in Star Wars. Shekelesh. You would be forgiven for thinking this was some kind of object or small building, like a giant helmet or a concession stand at a pod racing track. But it is in fact a starship, and one of the weirdest in Star Wars. The Techno-Union Shekelesh-class freight gunship was a small armed freighter seen fairly commonly throughout the Confederacy of Independent Systems during the Clone Wars. Like most of these ships, its appearance speaks for itself, but the weirdness doesn't stop there. Each of the 6 blisters on its sides contained one of its 6 tall landing gear, which enabled the ship to walk around on the ground. This would be very convenient for logistical purposes, but it also made it fairly popular with smugglers who could use this to scuttle away from police if caught. Fairly little is known about the Shekelesh, but it measured 21.5 meters tall by about 17 meters long and 9 meters wide. It had one of the worst top atmospheric speeds I have ever seen for a spaceship at only 300 kilometers per hour, but it did have a Class 1 hyperdrive, so at least there's that. The Shekelesh was armed with 2 twin laser cannons, which doesn't really seem like a lot for something described as a freight gunship. Its very large antennas on the roof imply a very powerful communications array as well. The ship supposedly required a crew of 8, though I can't imagine that is truly necessary for a ship this small. I would guess the crew to be 1 pilot, 1 engineer and comms operator, possibly a co-pilot, and then the other 5 or 6 crew are cargo handlers to load and unload the ship very quickly upon landing. Unfortunately, the 2 most important stats for a freighter, price and cargo capacity, are unknown for the Shekelesh. The entire lower section of the ship is its cargo bay, which adds to the ease and speed of unloading. This gives it a max cargo volume of around 350 cubic meters, though obviously you wouldn't be able to use the entire space, or your crew wouldn't be able to unload it, and that's not really a useful metric for comparison since it's normally measured in tons. The price is a lot easier to assign arbitrarily though. For its size, it would probably be around 100,000 credits. AZZ3. If I asked you to imagine what the Millennium Falcon would look like if it were made by the Mon Calamari, you would probably come up with something like this, which is because that's what it is. This is the Mon Calamari AZZ3 light freighter. I debated whether or not to include this one, as the Mon Calamari design language is such a core element of the Star Wars aesthetic, but with its 4 side-by-side pods and silly little cockpit module, the AZZ3 is still strange even by Mon Cal standards. It is a delightfully silly and whimsical design, like a row of blimps all glued together. It is described only as a popular Mon Calamari transport, and we can imagine fleets of these hauling imports and exports at Mon Calamari cities. The ship measured 24 meters long by about 31 meters wide and 12 point tall by my estimation, though with only one rather sketchy image to go off of, the proportions may not be entirely accurate. It had a fairly ordinary top speed of 850 kilometers per hour and a Class 1 hyperdrive. The AZZ3 was fairly well shielded and included backup shield generators, sensors, and life support systems, making it one of the most well-protected light freighters on the market. It was armed with 2 fixed laser cannons, and required a crew of 2 pilots and 2 gunners. It could also carry 8 passengers, 2 months of consumables, and 60 tons of cargo. Like the Shekelesh, and spoiler alert, like most of the ships on this list, the price of the AZZ3 was unknown, but it was probably around 150,000 credits due to its size and all the redundant systems it includes. Starlight-class. Next up is the Ralltiiri Star Drive and Suron Star Tech Starlight-class light freighter. This ship looks kind of like someone tried to recreate the YT-2400 from only a poorly translated description of it. This kind of makes it arguably the most conventional looking ship on the list, but the way it looks like only half a ship meant it was a necessary inclusion. Its lore doesn't do it many favors either. Its interior was said to be very cramped and rugged, and it was the last ship produced by Ralltiiri Suron. Can't imagine why. The Starlight class measured 34 meters long by about 32 meters wide and 6 meters tall. It had a top speed in atmosphere of 800 kilometers per hour and a Class 2 hyperdrive. It was armed with one turret-mounted blaster cannon at the tip of its wing. The ship required only a crew of 1 and could carry 4 passengers, 3 weeks of consumables, and 50 tons of cargo. The cost of a new Starlight class is unknown, but it cost 26,000 credits used. That's just a bit more than a used YT-1300, meaning it probably cost around 110,000 credits new. Ralltiiri Light Freighter. While most of the ships on this list are old Legends ships, canon has no shortage of oddballs as well, and my favorite of these is the Ralltiiri Light Freighter from The Rise of Skywalker. To the untrained eye, this may look like a drill press or a stapler, but it is indeed a ship. Unfortunately, we know absolutely nothing about it, but we can speculate a little. I don't know what would possess the people of the planet Ralltiiri to build a ship that looks like this, but I suspect that the large notch is meant to dock with some kind of Ralltiiri station or push a cargo container barge. This is more or less why the YT-1300 has its iconic forward mandibles, so that would make sense to me. The cockpit looks like something you might see on a tugboat or barge pusher as well. None of the RLF's stats are known to us, but we can estimate its size to be around 50 meters long by 9 meters wide and 22 meters tall based on the size of its airlocks. We can't determine its atmospheric speed just by looking at it, but I can't imagine it being any faster than 850 kilometers per hour. It likely had a Class 1 or 2 hyperdrive as well. Its crew probably consisted of 2 pilots, an engineer, a loadmaster, and a gunner. It may have been able to hold 6 passengers as well. The ship's cargo capacity is very difficult to say, but I would give it a capacity of 200 tons internally, plus an unknown amount in external cargo containers. Finally, the RLF was armed with 1 dual laser turret. Based on its size, I would estimate it to have a price of 190,000 credits. MB-C1. And finally, one of the wackiest freighter designs in Star Wars is the Mobquet Swoops and Speeders MB-C1 Medium Transport. Also known as the Mobquet Medium Cargo Hauler, this ship has one of the weirdest designs I have ever seen. Its overall form consists of 2 large cubes and an oblong cylinder all connected by the tiniest of struts. These were modular nodes that could be modified or possibly even replaced by the owner. This design may have been practical, but it certainly looked strange. What's even weirder though were its engines. According to its official schematics from the Essential Guide to Vehicles and Vessels, it had 6 maneuvering thrusters facing straight down on the bottom of the ship, and 4 ion engines at the rear facing diagonally downward as well. As far as I can tell, it does not actually have rear-facing engines like literally every other Star Wars ship I can think of, though some depictions of it do add them. There is a somewhat famous image of the Millennium Falcon hitching a ride on the back of a Mobquet medium named the Starlight Intruder, which would suggest that an ordinary MB-C1 wouldn't have engines there. Side note, Starlight Intruder has gotta be a top 10 Star Wars ship name. I'm not sure how useful maneuvering thrusters that all face the same direction, or main engines that don't aim in the direction of travel would be, so this all contributes to it being a very weird freighter. The MB-C1 measured 113 meters long by about 35 meters wide and 33 tall, though I expect those dimensions could be a little different depending on what modules you may have installed. Despite its weird engine layout, it managed to have a top speed of 800 kilometers per hour and a Class II hyperdrive. Its weapons were variable, but 2 fire-linked twin medium laser cannons and a concussion missile launcher were fairly popular options. It could require 2 to 8 crew, again depending on how you configure it, and it could carry 2 months of consumables, up to 32 passengers, and at least 700 tons of cargo. All that came at a steep price of 750,000 credits new, or 225,000 used, but all things considered, that doesn't seem like too bad of a deal to me. And those were 4 of the weirdest freighters in Star Wars. Please let me know which one was your favorite, what you would have included instead, and what other categories you'd like to see the weirdest members of next. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.